Recording in progress.
Good evening. Sure everybody can hear me there. I would like to call the November 18th, November 19th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting to order. Please note this meeting is being hosted through a live stream on the city website and teleconference via Zoom. I'd like to remind the planning commissioners to have their microphones turned on and positioned so the audience can hear. Director Monique, may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Worth,
Here.
Commissioner Clark,
Present.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Vice Chair Papp,
Here.
Chair Beamsterfer,
Here. And now implication flag salute. We'll go ahead and start with flag salutes first. Thank you for bringing us here tonight, Father God, and I pray for everybody's health, that we are in good health, Lord. I pray for our city. I pray for our elected governments and our new elected governments, Lord. I pray that you just guide our decision-making, and as in Ephesians 6:12 would say, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against rulers of the darkness of this world, Lord. I pray that you guide us in our decision-making tonight. In your name we pray, amen. Agenda item number 4 is the public comment period for items not on the agenda. This will be a 3-minute time frame for each person that speaks. Are there any members of the public present that would like to comment on an item not on the agenda?
Chair Beamsterfer, I do have request to speak forms. I will call upon the first person, Carrie Armstrong.
3 minutes out here.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Armstrong, and I live in Seven Hills. I have lived in this valley for well over 14.
Is your microphone turned on?
Hey, push the
There
button,
we
it
go.
works. What do you know? Technology. My name is Carrie. I live in Seven Hills, and I've been in this valley for over 14 years. I have seen transition in this valley like no other right now. The homelessness is out of control. This city is dirty. It's dangerous. You can't go to the store without somebody right behind you, almost accosting you because they're talking to people. We need to get some help out here. There needs to be some places for these people to go. There's thousands of empty buildings that I see all over the place. There's lots of hotels that are empty. We need to get some people out here to try and get this worked out. Other issues is some of the stores. We got some new stores coming in. It takes a long time, and I understand there's projects and procedures that you have to go through, but we're not getting the right places. We don't need more fast food. We have lots of fast food. We need quality workplaces where people can go to work and they can get a paycheck and help with the taxations here in our city. That's my question to this board. What are we gonna do? We got a new year coming, and we have a lot of people who may or may not still be in our city. I know we have the largest Social Security office here in Southern California, but going by there, it's a really rough area. Everything around here is really, really rough, and it never used to be. As a young kid, you could go out here at any time, not have a problem. Not anymore. I can't even go into the store without having an issue. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Jean Faenza.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everybody out there. I was going to speak on the Newland Simpson Park again. You've seen me before, and you'll keep seeing me until we probably put this to some resolution for our community. Definitely oppose it. I'm more concerned now about how Winchester plays into it and how they know about the project and what they know about the project, and do they know 40% of the traffic's gonna be going down Simpson Road into their community, into downtown Winchester, which is their Harvest Valley plan, and how we've integrated that, and have they even opined on it? I can't find an opinion out there anywhere in the document center, so I'm concerned about that obviously we have a sphere of influence that crosses over each other. And again, we submitted a comment about the draft environmental today to Corinna. Thank you for that. And hopefully you'll take a look at that as well. There's a lot of good information. I know you have a lot of decisions to make about how to proceed with our fine city, our fine town, but the traffic is horrible right now. Horrible. When I came down Warren, so I live at Solera Diamond Valley, it was backed up from Stetson to Florida with regular traffic, no trucks at this point. So I continue to be concerned about the traffic and the circulation of the traffic. I hope you'll all be I think you're all gonna be at the December 12th meeting, right? The joint meeting, I've heard, so we'll see you all there. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Matt McPherson, who has 2 citizens that have allocated their time.
So you get 9 minutes through you.
Okay, I apologize ahead of time if this is a diatribe. Good evening, council members. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out. My name is Matt McPherson. I'm the 6th generation in the Valley. I'm a realtor and have my office in downtown Hemet, where my family has owned and operated property since 1863, before this area was even yet to be named Hemet. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from UCR in anthropology. My passions for the city and this valley runs deep, especially the downtown history and the architecture. After my pleas at the podium, the city agreed to bring the Christmas parade back downtown. Recently we had our 6th Chalktober event with Hemet PD and the Hemet Library. The event was very well attended and a huge success. The vendors and attendees can't wait for next year. A week from this Saturday, City of Hemet Mayor Joe Males will be lighting the downtown Christmas tree, for our 7th annual tree lighting. My family and I have solely financed the tree lighting and numerous other events and causes throughout downtown Hemet, going back decades. In 2020, I was able to connect the dots in the manslaughter of Joe Males' son, Nick Males, and directed Hemet PD to the suspect. In 2016, Nick was brutally stabbed in the parking lot just north of the bar he was leaving at 118 North Harvard Street, or you might also know the building we sarcastically refer to as the Castle. In addition, next week the city will be closing escrow on the property next to the historic Hemet Theater, which I helped to successfully negotiate, so looking forward to that. Over the last decade, my family and I have had to defend ourselves from an onslaught of lawfare, slander, and even assault and battery numerous times, all because we have questioned and uncovered rampant corruption that surrounds this property owner and the city staff and officials who have accommodated him. Now I'm referring to the Gibble building, the infamous white building on the corner of, northeast corner of State and Florida. And all because we've questioned and uncovered rampant corruption that surrounds the property owner, the city staff, and officials who've accommodated him. We've been told numerous times that we were standing in the way of this guy's vision. We own the retail center that includes shooters and have been surrounded by boarded up, I don't even know if I can call them buildings or structures, because the definition of a structure is 4 walls and a roof. Well, the Gibble building hasn't had a roof for a decade now. Over 10 years I've been coming to the podium since 2014, pleading with the city to get something done while I watch him buy more property and more property. And then he comes back and tells the city, well, I don't have any money to finish these projects. Then he buys another property, all cash, $500,000. And I'm sitting here as a citizen, a taxpayer, property owner, wondering when the city's actually going to enforce anything. But here I'll continue. In November of 2014, the Gibble building was under review by the City Council for a facade improvement. Councilmember Wright was concerned about doing one project at a time. He thought Simon was taking on too much in November 2014, 10 years ago, saying, can't we just work on one at a time? You know, let's do that. Well, Councilmember Linda Krupa said she would keep a close eye on the project and that she ordered all the brick to be retained. Okay. In addition, Deanna Iliano questioned the integrity of the unreinforced masonry walls if the brick was removed. That next week, the exterior stucco was removed, exposing the original Gibble implements and hardware sign from like the 1800s. It was beautiful. Looks like something you'd see in downtown Pasadena or the gas lamp in downtown San Diego. I thought, oh, we're finally taking a step in the right direction. We're embracing our agrarian culture, what this thing was founded on, the Farmers Fair, all this stuff. So I drive by the next day, and him and Steve Covington are out there with sledgehammers smashing the brick down. The entire sign destroyed and everything. And I'm referring back to the minutes going, well, they ordered it all retained, it to be put on a, what happened, you know? So also the unreinforced masonry, the integrity was destroyed when he destroyed all the brick. It compromised, so after the fact, we see some city staff goes in and inputs that he put in structural windows, which, I don't know, there's no engineering report, there's no planning report, and no inspection. So it sounds like somebody just might have fibbed after the fact, and we've caught them fibbing before, so it's no surprise. Yeah, I was excited. I thought we were going to be like the gas lamp or Redlands Temecula that pursued this gentrification, especially considering the city council just ordered that the brick be retained and the building be put on a historic registry. Now all the fabulous historic brick that complemented our downtown was demolished and thrown away. The ominous Gibble hardware sign that was over 100 years old completely destroyed and forgotten. All of this in defiance of city orders, city code, international building code, and not to mention an entire community that misses the once vibrant downtown Hemet. During this time, the owner and his business partner and city official Steve Covington took it upon themselves to alter our building without our permission. I think I've told you guys this story. They removed our $10,000 awning and redid our building without even asking us, then sent us a bill. Then when we refused to pay, and they coached our tenant on how to sue us. And then we discovered all these emails in discovery that corroborate everything I'm telling you right now. Emails from the city coaching tenants how to sue us. Emails telling Steve Covington where to throw our awning, you know, what they want to do with our building. So we successfully defended ourselves. It was like a 6-year lawsuit, $850,000. We successfully defended ourselves, but it was a Pyrrhic victory, a huge cost. You know, cost us money, cost us time, and it allowed this guy to continue to go buy more stuff, you know, and then we looked like the bad guys because we were questioning what was going on. People would say, why you got to get in the way of his vision? You know, he's going to better the downtown, he's going to build 9 restaurants. You know, he told us that in 2014, and that's what I'm hearing now. If you don't already know, I don't take things lying down. So I decided to confront Steve Covington and his business partner about the RICO-like behavior at our expense. I went to the downtown deli to confront them both on this egregious miscarriage of justice and was assaulted by one of their associates. I called 911, but then I was arrested. And a picture of me in handcuffs was paraded all over social media to shame me and slander me as if I did something wrong, other than down there and confront our neighboring property owner, like, what the hell are you doing? You altered our building without our permission, and I can prove it now, you know? So I went to confront him as a city official. I made numerous attempts to go to the Traffic and Parking Commission, of which he was a chair, but they canceled the meeting, had the last meeting in secret, didn't publicly announce it, and then they dissolved the entire commission. So I never got my chance to come to the podium and physically face him and confront him on what he had done to our property. It was in 2014 that Steve Covington, who represented himself as a licensed design professional in violation of professional code in California, was the applicant for this concept at the Gibble building. No municipal code or regular protocol then followed. No working building plan submitted until possibly 2018 or 2019. This after the building had sat with no roof for 4 or 5 years at that time in 2019. After the building owner sledgehammered out the historic brick and original architecture of an unreinforced exterior masonry wall, it seemed building officials with the city of Hemet put in entries stating structural windows were put in. No engineering reports, no inspections exist to verify if any of this is true or if these windows are actually structural windows. So the building owner knocks out a major portion of the exterior unreinforced masonry load-bearing wall without engineering input or necessary oversight. This is in 2014, and my mother and I questioned why no structural engineering or required oversight was apparent. An application approval and issuance was approved with no inspections or building official or engineering or oversight. All applied, approved, and issued on November 17th, 2014. No plan check or inspections in the portal. Up, am I out? Okay, well, I'll finish it up quick. In 2020, he was trying to finish Krupa's Castle there at 118 North Harvard. He claimed in emails I have he didn't have enough money to finish. He needed the city to financially bail him out. And that same week, he turned around and bought Boy's Burger, $250,000, all cash. Okay? So March 7th, you guys issue a red tag order, red tag 102 and 118 North Harvard. You're going to red tag more, but a consent order was issued. The city refuses to let anybody see that consent order. That consent order would really vindicate the city on what they're doing. A lot of the people are mad at the city because they don't feel like they're enforcing anything on this this property owner. But I think that consent order could, shed some light on some things, what the city plans to do, what the terms are for this consent order. And in March he gets it, so recently he made a video where he bragged about spending $100,000 to $200,000 to hire an attorney so that he doesn't have to do any of these things the city are ordering that we all want done. And then he brags, laughs about it, that he just bought the Harvard Street Music Building for $500,000 cash, okay? This all while out the other side of his mouth telling the city he doesn't have any money to finish any of these projects. So we've sat by and I've been battered and beaten by this guy. At Gibble, I went on November 23rd, 2020, I was taking pictures of code enforcement. Anytime I see code enforcement at the building, I'm interested.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, I'll go. But
We're
I was
about to 9
assaulted
minutes.
by Simon Chu. 2 Hemet PD officers had to tackle him off my car. And then after the fact, that bribery email, after that takes place, Amerigo shows up to testify on Simon's behalf after the bribe takes place. And he wasn't in the police report, he wasn't at the scene of the crime, but he shows up after I sue Simon and after that encounter on the email takes place. So I'll let you guys kind of connect the dots about what's going on.
Thank you very much, Matt. Anybody else from the public who wants to make a public comment?
Yes, I'm Mary Ann Derwin.
Good evening, council. I'm here to talk about, you have on the agenda that you're gonna put in another drive-through restaurant over there where Long John Silver's burnt down. We haven't even tackled In-N-Out Burger. The traffic there is in the street. How, if they were made to reroute their parking and their drive-through, and there's that big, huge parking lot there because there's empty buildings there, but the problem was never solved. It never got redirected. So I don't know whose idea was that or who signed off on that it's okay that cars are just lined up on the side of Florida waiting to get a burger. And it's every day. It's not like just Saturday, Sunday nights or Fridays, it's every single day. There are cars that are lined up there. And I am surprised that we don't hear more accidents happening of people just driving and then someone swooping in and not noticing that there's a whole line of parked cars where there shouldn't be. Because it's no parking, but yet they're idly standing, they're parked there, waiting to pull into the driveway to then order. And I understand that In-N-Out does try to do their best. They have someone stand out there. They do try to be very efficient about it. But I don't understand who thought this was a good idea to let these cars just park on the side of Florida where there's no parking. I would get a ticket if I parked my car there, or towed. But yet these cars are allowed to sit there and idly wait. So I don't know who didn't do their job or did or signed off on it that thought this was a good idea. But I'd like to see it redirected because there are empty buildings in that parking lot. And so there was really no reason that it couldn't have been redirected and done just a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Judith McPherson.
Yes, I'm here to speak about two issues, both involving the downtown area. I think Matthew did not get to the current, I know you're probably going to receive a report from Monique. What I saw in the report were like 2 lines that said that the Gibble building will be re-roofed. Well, of course it would be. And that things are in progress. Currently, there is a building permit for, I can't remember the rest of the numbers, but it was issued in April for a start all over for a retrofit. But within that permit, it indicates almost a 3,500 additional square feet to be added. And what I know about municipal code, that should trigger a public hearing because of the percentage of increased square footage for the area, and we own property across the street. It brings in increased occupancy, which addresses parking, which now brings me to, so I'm requesting at this time that we probably should look at a public hearing. And the second issue, it hits on parking. We own the property at 135 East Florida Avenue, which is a flagship parcel that included the former, I know Ms. Clark would remember, the former Security Pacific Bank building, and it was some other banks and other businesses since. The entire parking lot of 87 dedicated spaces are private and adjoin Shooters, and what used to be Vista Paint is now ARE. At the time that the business at 121 East Florida Avenue was to open, and in their conditional use permit was one condition that before they could open for business, and that's a neighboring parcel to 135 East Florida that we own, that the neighbor was supposed to engage in a parking agreement to be able to have use of the private lot to the south. That did not happen. Soledad Carasosa of the planning department allowed the business to open. And it's no coincidence that the owner of the business had recently hired her son. Okay, there is a nexus there. So recently we've decided to engage in a pay for parking because I've been assaulted in the parking lot when I've tried to ask people to leave. They were parking at suites or other businesses. They accused me of being the only person that caused them any trouble. Well, I'm the only person that owns the property. And it was posted for what parking it was supposed to have. So recently we have engaged in researching pay for parking like they do with the code, the code, and approach the city, but now the city tells us that the city needs to draft municipal code. Well, first, the city needs to talk to their employee. They gave away the use of our land without our permission. The same person that allowed Steve Covington to design the front of 121 East Florida
Okay,
Avenue and change the
Judy, we've
facade
gone past the 3 minutes.
without our permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Any other public
I don't
comment?
have no other public comments that I have received.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, I have a question. Is it possible to request the written documentation that Mr. McPherson had that he was reading from?
You want a copy of this? What written are you looking at? Her statement, a written copy of it?
Yes, what Mr. McPherson is holding right there that he was reading from.
I have this on my computer at home. I'll email.
You can email all of us, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item 5A, which is the approval minutes of the meeting from November 5th, 2024. Does the commission have any comments or corrections?
No corrections. And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of November 5th, 2024.
Second.
Maybe have roll call.
I'm not going to do a roll call to obtain your votes. Commissioners, please announce your vote. Commissioner Worth,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Vice Chair Papp,
Yes.
Chair Beamsterfer,
Yes.
and that motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we're moving on to item 6A, presentation from our city attorney, Leah Sawari.
Yes, thank you. I have this slide up in a moment. Okay. Good evening, commissioners, planning staff, members of the public. My name is Layla Sarwari from the City Attorney's Office. Tonight, I'll be providing you with an overview of the recent developments to the Brown Act and housing legislation in California for 2025 legislation. I'll also be providing you with two presentations tonight. The first will be an overview of 30-plus bills, and the second will be a presentation on AB 98.
Is everybody able to hear her?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. These microphones are gonna.
We'll first discuss the Brown Act. Back in 2022, the California legislature adopted AB 2449, which provided members of legislative bodies, such as the Planning Commission and City Council, the ability to attend meetings remotely in emergency circumstances and for just cause without needing to publish the location of the remote teleconference location. This amendment to the Brown Act was intended to allow members to provide care for close family members, travel on agency business, or remain home if they had a contagious disease while still participating in the meeting. AB 2449 placed a cap on the number of times a member could participate under these provisions at no more than 3 consecutive months, 20% of the meetings of the body, or 2 meetings if the body meets fewer than 10 times per year. AB 2302, which takes effect on January 1st, 2025, revises those limits to a specific number of meetings per year based on the number of meetings the body has scheduled per year. So for the Planning Commission, it would be 5 times per year if the body regularly meets twice per month. This is just a little bit more of a background information from the Attorney General's office. The next section we'll be discussing is the Housing Accountability Act. AB 1893 amends the Housing Accountability Act to significantly modify the builder's remedy. The builder's remedy prevents the city from denying a qualifying housing development project, even if inconsistent with the general plan or zoning code, if the city has not adopted an updated and compliant housing element. However, there is very little statutory or judicial guidance on how to implement the builder's remedy, leading to significant difficulties in interpreting and implementing this provision. These are the items 1 through 5 are just the summary of what the intention of AB 1893 is. The focus here is on accelerating housing goals and addressing local resistance on development initiatives.
Is that, I'm sorry, is that for residential only?
It references housing development projects, so by the term of what they're using here, I would assume that it would be residential, but I'll look into that a little bit further.
Be residential and/or mixed-use developments with a 2/3 residential component.
Okay, thank you. AB 1886 is the Housing Element Compliance Confirmation by HCD or the courts. This bill is a companion bill to 1893 and addresses 2 other issues raised by builders' remedy projects. One is substantial compliance. So some cities have taken a position that their housing element was HAA compliant despite a negative finding by HCD. This bill, this intention of this bill is to clarify that a housing element or amendment is considered in substantial compliance when it has been adopted by the local agency and determined to comply with HCD, or Court of Competent Jurisdiction. Some cities also challenge the idea that a preliminary application submittal vests the city's status as not being HAA compliant. Once those cities received HCD approval of their housing element, they attempted to disapprove the builder's remedy projects that were submitted before the city had received HCD approval. This bill eliminates this practice by local agencies and establishes that the housing element status is determined when the project is submitted. AB 1413. This bill introduces reforms to reduce CEQA laundering practices where excessive CEQA review is used to delay housing practice. This bill builds on 2023 AB 1633 by enhancing transparency and stakeholder engagement. So we're going to go and speak on enforcement and planning. AB 2904, it's zoning ordinance notice. Current law requires 10-day mailed notice of public hearings on zoning changes that affect permitted use of real property. This bill would increase the notice per period to 20 days before the public hearing. The standard 10-day notice remains for changes that do not alter property use. A notification may be delivered through a mail, publication, or other accessible means, depending on the situation. We also have an interesting one. It's an AB 2684, which is extreme heat safety element. This is very new. This will take into effect starting January 1st, 2028, and it requires the cities and counties to integrate extreme heat mitigation into their safety plans and the next hazard mitigation plan review, and to update these plans every 8 years to improve community resilience to rising temperatures and heat-related risks. AB 2023, the rebuttable presumption of invalidity. Starting the 7th revision of the housing element, local agencies must complete rezoning within 1 year of the statutory deadline for adopting the housing element. An extended deadline of 3 years and 90 days applies if the local government meets the specific conditions. This bill establishes a rebuttable presumption of invalidity against local agencies in legal actions challenging their failure to act or actions inconsistent with an adopted housing element if HCD finds noncompliance. SB 1037, housing element noncompliance penalties. The following remedies are available against local agencies that violate state law regarding ministerial approvals for housing projects and element revisions. So we have here the penalties listed 1 through 3. The penalties only apply if the agency's actions are arbitrary, unsupported by evidence, violate public policy, unlawful, or procedurally unfair. AB 2427. This is a newer type of bill based on electrical vehicle charging stations. This essentially focuses on advancing equitable access to EV charging infrastructure, specifically for residents without private parking, such as those in multifamily housing or dense urban areas.
I have a quick question real quick on AB 2632. Is that the same, Commissioner Papp, in regards to the 2/3 residential for mixed use? So is that penalty, seeing that it references housing, does that apply to the same category of types of projects?
Which bill?
AB 2023?
The enforcement of fines.
Oh.
Oh, 1037 SB?
So that references housing
AB
projects
1893.
as well. So are these things all associated with that same classification of types of projects?
No, that would be for non-compliant housing element. So if the city, based on the next housing element update cycle, if the city were out of compliance for more than a year, then the state could assess those penalties.
Okay, so as well, it says for ministerial approval for housing projects. Is that,
Yeah, but it only applies after the next cycle housing element update. So we just finished the 6th cycle housing element. So beginning with the 7th housing element cycle, which would be 4 more years?
4 more years.
After that point, so in 5 years' time, approximately from now, if the city has not adopted a compliant housing element, the state of California can impose those fines because new programs and new goals and new objectives haven't been implemented in a certified housing element. So it doesn't go into effect it's in effect under the state statutes, but it won't apply until the next cycle, housing element update cycle occurs.
okay, thank you.
Moving on to AB 2632, thrift retail stores. This prohibits local governments from classifying or treating thrift retail establishments differently than non-thrift retail establishments for zoning, land use, approval, development purposes. It allows a local agency to require that thrift retail stores meet certain aesthetic or design standards. Local agencies may adopt or enforce reasonable ordinances related to delivery of goods or donations within a specified area, illegal dumping, or the enforcement of health and safety standards. AB 3093, income categories and historic preservation. This introduces key updates to California's housing policies by requiring governments to incorporate new income categories into their housing elements. It requires annual reports to HCD to include progress on meeting targets from the 6th and previous revisions of housing needs. Requires housing elements to analyze how historical preservation practices may impact the availability of housing to meet regional needs. Clarifies income level categories: acutely low, extremely low, low to lower, moderate, above moderate, and specifies acutely low and extremely low income households are a focus of special housing needs, especially for the 7th revision of the housing elements. AB 267, reporting requirements for fair housing. HCD will develop a standardized reporting format for fair housing programs and actions which local agencies must use for the 7th housing element revision. Agencies must notify interested parties of housing element revisions by email at least 90 days before the adoption of the housing element and 7 days before any subsequent submission if site inventories change. SB 7, RHNA allocation process. SB 7 seeks to streamline the regional housing needs allocation process by removing objections from local governments and simplifying the methodology for housing needs determination. This bill mandates expanded public input, that participation be solicited from households with special housing needs, a reduction of HCD's review from 90 days to 45 days to expedite the implementation of the housing strategies. Essentially, the SB 7 is reforming California's RHNA process by making changes to streamline and to improve allocation of housing targets to local governments. Streamlining, this is a big section. AB 2085, reproductive health services. It's essentially designed to streamline the approval process for community clinics providing reproductive health services. And those are the list of standards. And agencies have 60 days to make a determination with written explanations of denials. Developers may address these conflicts, which triggers another 60 days for agencies to reassess. Extensions may be granted at any time. AB 2243, housing projects on commercial sites. It essentially expands previous legislation, AB 2011 and SB 6, to facilitate housing developments on commercial sites by repurposing underused commercial sites for affordable housing. And those are the list of the types of housing. The bill prohibits demolishing a historic structure on national, state, or local historic register. Agencies must respond within 30 days of a resubmitted application. This is a chart for AB 3122, and essentially it modifies SB 35 and SB 423 on this graph here. It focuses on streamlining housing project approvals by enhancing the use of objective standards. So this chart a PDF will be provided to you all so you can have a time to look at this a little bit deeper. AB 3122 allows developers to modify a project and retain ministerial processing if a modification contains more than 15% increase in residential units, as long as the total project square footage does not increase by 15% or more. Establishing a 30-day planning review timeframe when the developer resubmits project revisions to address the city's comments and concerns. SB 1123. It's effective July 1st, 2025. This builds on SB 684 by expanding the scope of streamlined ministerial approval process for small subdivisions and housing developments.
So we're not able to use ADUs in a part of our RENA count for low income and extremely low income after that?
We can.
We can.
Yeah, we
Could-
can.
Could you repeat that question, Chair?
ADUs, go ahead.
Could you repeat that question? I didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah, I was just asking about when we had the discussion about the RENA and the numbers for low income and extremely low income, and we brought up the question about ADUs, if we can count them in as a
Yeah.
part of a number. And my question was after
Oh,
July 1st.
Effective
we
July
can't.
1st, correct.
This states that they prohibit local agencies from counting ADUs or JADUs as
Yeah, that's why
residential
that's why I
units.
brought
Right.
that up.
But they can have affordable covenants attached to them.
Can't go into detail now.
But they can't, but it is prohibited as far as, after July 1st.
Huh.
They can't really be counted as ADUs for residential purposes as far as the RENA.
That's very interesting.
Ain't that special?
AB 2694, elderly residential care facilities. It broadens the definition of development under the density bonus law to include residential care facilities for the elderly, enabling these facilities to qualify for density bonuses and related benefits. Defines shared housing units in residential care facilities as units without individual kitchens where unrelated persons may share rooms. SB 3116 is student housing. Is defined as housing with shared or private rooms, bathrooms, kitchens, living space, etc. Designed to house 2 or more students per unit, enrolled in at least 6 units. Projects reserving 20% of units for low-income students are eligible for a density bonus with varying bonus levels based on percentage of affordable units. Limits parking requirements, allowing 1 bed space to student housing to require 0 parking spaces. California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. AB 98. AB 98 is a new law starting in 2026, governing logistics facility development in California. It introduces statewide standards for warehouse design, air quality, monitoring, and truck routing. The law aims to mitigate the environmental and community impact of logistics operations, especially in densely populated areas. Local planning professionals must update circulation elements and ensure compliance by 2026. AB 98 also includes buffer zones, minimum distances of 300 to 500 feet, housing protection. Developers must replace demolished housing units and provide rent relief for displaced tenants. Truck routing plans, facilities must establish truck routing plans to avoid sensitive areas.
Is that buffer zone, what is that to? Is that to the building, or is that to the property line?
I have a separate presentation after this,
Okay.
particularly on AB 98, so we can talk about that. AB 2117, development permit extension during litigation. This excludes time spent in litigation from time frame in which permit or project that is pending can expire. This extension is automatic for development permits like variances and conditional use permits. Here, the permit does not include building permit under the Building Standards Code, demolition, excavation, or grading. AB 2199, county infill exemption extension. This bill extends the CEQA exemption for specified residential and mixed-use housing projects in unincorporated county areas until January 1st, 2032 to facilitate housing development. For projects that qualify, the lead agency must file a notice of exemption and stakeholders in residential and mixed-use development projects, particularly in unincorporated county areas, should be informed of the exemption extension and updated requirements. AB 3057. This bill simply expands an existing California Environmental Quality Act exemption for adopting a city ordinance to facilitate accessory dwelling units to include junior ADUs. A junior ADU is defined as a unit of no more than 500 square feet and contained within a single-family residence, which may include a separate or shared sanitation facilities with the existing structure. SB 1395. This bill focuses on streamlining the development of interim housing to address the state's homeless crisis. The Shelter Crisis Act is set to sunset on January 1st, 2026, and it permits agencies to declare shelter crisis to provide emergency housing. Under the Shelter Crisis Act, the local jurisdiction may allow homeless persons to occupy designated public facilities for the duration of the crisis. Fees and land dedication. AB 2553. Currently, fees are to be lower for housing developments within half a mile of a transit station. The bill replaces within half a mile of a transit station requirements within a transit priority area and the major transit stop as defined. A local agency cannot require a housing development to dedicate land for road widening if it's solely to address vehicle traffic impacts, meet a traffic level of service, or reach a specific roadway width. AB 3177 requires that developments close to transit, these fees must reflect a reduced rate of vehicle trip generation, provided the project is within a transit priority area rather than simply within half a mile of a transit station. Prohibits local agencies from requiring land dedications, specifically to widen roads, from mitigating traffic impacts, meeting traffic service levels, or achieving desired roadway widths. SB 937, impact fee deferral. Limits utility service fee exemptions to only connection-related fees, cap fees at the cost incurred by the utility provider, and extends the exemption to all housing developers, not just nonprofit developers, if certain conditions are met. Prohibits local agencies from requiring payment of fees for public improvements until the first certificate of occupancy is issued. If fees are unpaid before building permit issuance, property owners must sign a contract agreeing to pay them. AB 2430. Local governments cannot charge a monitoring fee on qualifying housing projects eligible under the density bonus law. The prohibition applies if specific conditions are met, such as the housing development containing 100% lower income units, up to 20% allowed for moderate income households. Starting January 1st, 2025, any affordable housing development already in service that qualifies under these terms will no longer be subject to monitoring fees. It's not working, sorry. Okay. AB 2663, inclusionary housing fee reports, requires local agencies to publicly report on the collection expenditure of these funds. Starting in 2026, these reporting requirements will ensure that local agencies are more accountable for the use of these fees and provide greater insight into the effectiveness of affordable housing initiatives, funding by these fees. Local agencies that have an internet website must post the following annually: the amount of in lieu fees collected in the previous year, whether these fees are intended for a specific housing project. Every 5 years, agencies must also post on their website the total amount of in lieu fees collected over the past 5 years, the specific projects to which those fees were allocated. AB 3012, the Permit Streamlining Act requires public agencies to provide development project applicants with a list of necessary information, including fee schedules, on their websites. The bill mandates that cities and counties with websites provide a fee estimate tool for housing projects online with a population of over 500,000 to comply by July 1st, 2031, and smaller cities by July 1st, 2032. AB 1820, fees and exactions, requires a city, county, or city and county shall provide the development proponent with an itemized list and a good faith estimate of the total sum amount of all fees and exactions that will apply to the project within 30 business days of the final project approval. This clarifies that the list for informational purposes only is not legally binding. ADUs. SB 1211. Local agencies cannot require the replacement of off-street parking spaces if a garage or covered parking structure is demolished or converted to create an ADU, and the replacement of off-street parking spaces if an uncovered parking space is demolished in conjunction with the constructing or converting to an ADU. This increases the limit to 8 attached ADUs on an existing multifamily dwelling lot. On lots with proposed multifamily dwellings, up to 2 detached ADUs are still permitted. AB 2533. The existing state law prohibits local agencies from denying a permit for unpermitted ADU constructed before January 1st, 2018, unless necessary to protect the public's or occupants' health and safety. AB 2533 expands the state amnesty law to include unpermitted ADUs and JDUs constructed before January 1st, 2020. In addition, this bill prohibits local agencies from penalizing an applicant for having an unpermitted ADU and would require the agencies to approve necessary permits to correct health and safety violations. SB 450, housing developments up to 2 residential units in single-family zones can be approved ministerially if it does not involve demolishing more than 25% of existing exterior walls. SB 450 removes this requirement, which means a housing development may be approved ministerially without considering how much of the existing structure is demolished. Local agencies cannot impose objective zoning, subdivision, or design standards on a project unless these standards are more permissive than those that apply to development within the underlying zone. SB 450 removes the authorization for a local agency to deny a proposed housing development if the building official makes a written finding that the proposed housing development project would have a specific adverse impact on the physical environment. Agencies must approve or deny urban lot splits within 60 days. If they do not act within 60-day period, the application is automatically approved. Housing production constraints. AB 2729. This bill extends the expiration date of housing entitlements permits for residential development projects issued before 2024 and set to expire before December 31st, 2025 by an additional 18 months. The extension period will toll or pause if the entitlement is involved in a legal challenge. The bill excludes development agreements, subdivision map acts already extended, and preliminary applications under the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. SB 1210 requires specified larger public utilities providing electrical, gas, water, or sewer service to publicly post on their internet websites the schedule of estimated fees and the estimated timeframes for completing service connections needed for each housing development type. Utilities with fewer than 4,000 service connections that do not establish or maintain an internet website due to hardship are exempt. Hardships may include inadequate access to high-speed internet, inadequate financial resources, or insufficient staff resources. AB 2580, reporting on historic designations. This bill requires that the annual planning and zoning reports include a list of all properties designated as historic in the past year. The report must also detail the status of any housing projects proposed for these newly designated historic sites. Affordable housing and financing. AB 846 aims to strengthen affordable housing by ensuring rents remain manageable for low-income households. Rental housing developments dedicating 80% of their units to lower-income households. AB 846 restricts affordable rent to the rate specified by deed restrictions or regulatory agreements tied to the public financing or assistance. This applies for developments receiving certain public awards on or after January 1st, 2025. And that concludes my presentation on these 30-plus bills. I have a separate presentation on AB 98.
And just to confirm, you're gonna email each of us the presentation?
Yes, I'll have planning staff email you all with a PDF version of this presentation.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have questions for Ms. Sawari before we move on to AB 98?
No.
Lot to obtain.
Yeah, if there's, I mean, there's a lot of bills that don't necessarily maybe apply to the city per se, which I understand. If there is a particular bill that you would like me to delve in deeper, maybe one or two bills, I'll be more than happy to do that. Just let me know. I can have that done right away. But I did want to pull AB 98 for you, so that is why I have that as a separate presentation.
All of the bills that you discussed this evening are already codified?
Yes, they're already codified. Thank you.
Wow. Just wow.
This is an overview of Assembly Bill 98. AB 98 is a new law governing logistics facility development in California. It introduces statewide standards for warehouse design, air quality, monitoring, and truck routing. The law aims to mitigate the environmental and community impact of logistics operations especially in densely populated areas. Oh, sorry, that's a very small slide for you to look at, so I'll read that. Key provisions of AB 98 are warehouse design standards. New logistics facilities must meet 21st century warehouse requirements, including energy efficient designs and zero emission vehicle readiness. Truck routing plans. Facilities must establish truck routing plans to avoid sensitive areas or sensitive receptors. Buffer zones. Minimum distances of 300 to 500 feet between warehouses and residential sensitive areas. Commissioner Worth, does that answer your question regarding the buffer zone between warehouses and residential sensitive areas?
The question was, I guess my question is it the warehouse structure or is it the warehouse property?
I'm going to look into that. Yeah, this is a very general description. And also the housing protection. Developers must replace demolished housing units and provide rent relief for displaced tenants. And as we know, the environmental and public impact. AB 98 mandates the use of zero emission technologies in logistics facilities where feasible. The South Coast Air Quality Management District will monitor air pollution in warehouse-heavy areas, particularly Riverside and San Bernardino counties. The goal is to reduce the impact of diesel emissions and to improve air quality near logistic hubs. Sitting criteria and truck routing. New logistics facilities must be sited on arterial roads, major thoroughfares, or commercially oriented roads. AB 98 mandates that truck routing plans prioritize avoiding sensitive receptors, such as homes and schools. Anti-idling signs are required at logistics facilities to reduce diesel pollution. And this slide is about potential economic and development impacts. The increased cost of compliance with AB 98 standards could reduce the number of new logistics developments in California. Concerns include potential job losses and economic slowdown in regions depending on warehousing. Some businesses may also consider relocating to states with less stringent regulations. And there are support and opposition. The supporters, the public health organizations, environmental groups, and community advocates for better air quality and health protections. The opposition, real estate developers, business groups, and some local governments due to increased costs and restrictions. Both sides acknowledge the impact on logistics-heavy regions like the Inland Empire. The conclusions and next steps to this. AB 98 represents a significant shift in California's approach to logistics facility development. Local planning professionals must update circulation elements and ensure compliance by 2026. Collaboration with developers, local governments, and environmental agencies are crucial to balance the growth and sustainability. And that is my presentation on AB 98.
Chair, I have one question.
Absolutely.
Leela,
Yes.
thank you for that. When does that take in effect, AB 98?
January 1st, 2026.
26, okay.
Does that affect projects currently in the queue? Is the January 2026 a cutoff for all new applicants?
Yes.
Okay.
So anything in the queue, it doesn't pertain to that, right?
Okay, but couldn't we use this as a guideline for existing?
You can.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, it's up to the city. I mean, however it wants to utilize this. I mean, this hasn't been used yet.
Mhm.
Essentially, it is in 2026 that it's actually going to be by law. So, I mean, one can use this as a guide on how to approve or not approve certain projects.
Okay, thank you.
This might be more for Director Monique, but have we established truck routes? An official truck route map, or are we still in the making on that, or?
Yes, the city, so the city of Hemet currently has established truck routes and outlined in our Hemet Municipal Code. At the recent presentation to the council, more recently, an attachment was included that illustrated the truck routes in the city, just for informational purpose, and in case anybody would like to refer back to that council meeting. There is a report that was presented to the city council, and an overview on an outline of a presentation that's going to be provided to the council at an upcoming future meeting. And in that, it includes the truck routes in the city. But as I understand, that was a discussion topic that the council discussed exploring.
So my question on the truck route then is, I know with Acacia, right by where Costin and Acacia, if you keep going just past Costin, it used to be a shortcut route back in the day that when you're coming into town, you just make a quick right and go down Acacia and make a right on Sanderson. Is there a way has the city thought about using that for the trucking route? Because not many cars really take that little stretch. And it's a safer way for trucks to exit on the Florida Avenue without using Sanderson as the route, because it's congested all the time with traffic. And I just been thinking about that Acacia Street for the Kirby project and for Sanderson project. That little stretch of road that we really don't use anymore, we could put an intersection there for semi-trucks only. A little bit more for safety. It just kind of came to my mind, but. Any other questions about AB 98?
I do. The definition of the dense population, is it adjacent to the warehouse, or is the dense population city numbers?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to look into the bill and the code a little bit deep, so I can look into that, get that definition for you
Yeah,
the next
thank
meeting.
you.
Absolutely.
If I could also, to kind of piggyback on that, does that also apply for the truck routes? So, yeah.
Any other questions by AB 98?
I have a couple. With respect to electric vehicles, is there anything in the bill that describes what level of, what metric that we would evaluate the requirement for electric vehicles? Is it 10%, 50%, somewhere in between? And then secondarily, with respect to energy efficiency in the buildings themselves, have they also identified a metric for attainment goals?
Those are good questions. I'm gonna look at that bill again and read through it. It's so brand new, it hasn't even been brought forth, but those are good questions. And I would assume that with the energy efficiency, there should have a metric of some sort. I don't know if it's 10% or 20%, but I'll look into that for sure.
And it's not a question so much for you, just a question to ponder in general for the commission and eventually the council. Is the infrastructure in place to allow for the charging facilities that would be required for these types of developments?
And my assumption on that is most cities probably would not have that. So these are just lovely bills that are out there.
I can't say for certain if it's fact.
Right.
I recall a story from about a year ago. There was a large industrial development believe it was in the state of Michigan, that the city approved. And when they determined what the energy demand was for the electrical vehicles that would be required to run that facility, the draw on the electric power for that one project was greater than the entire city that it was located in. So,
And my assumption is that that would probably be the case for many cities in local jurisdictions, and this bill would probably be amended, just my hunch.
You know, on that point, Commissioner Papp, they were talking about not being able to widen roads for the purpose of vehicles, while at the same time increasing densification, which exacerbates water and wastewater resource issues. And so if you don't have, I mean, the roadways are where those facilities and infrastructure go, and we're already getting to a point where there's not enough room to put sewer, water, recycled water, and all of the other utilities within those corridors to serve these types of demands.
Let alone just the traffic alone. You can't widen a street because you're sticking 1 million houses on a little pin, but don't widen your street. Ugh, I know.
We're gonna have drones delivering everything soon.
I remember when Temecula was planning ahead back in the day, and they widened all the roads before all those homes came out. And that was one question as a kid in high school. It's like, why are they widening the roads so wide going to Temecula? There's nothing out here.
Yeah.
And fast forward, 5, 10 years later, every part of that road has a home next to it. And so they definitely were proactive and planned ahead on widening the roads because they knew that what was coming. And I just kind of feel like sometimes we're going backwards and trying to build and not widen anything and strengthen our roads. But just an opinion. But any other questions for Ms. Sawari on the 98?
No.
No? And with that, I guess we can announce the commission has received and filed the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 6B is Community Development Department. Director Monique.
Thank you, Chair. At the November 5th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, the Commission provided staff with some questions on community-wide topics of interest, and so it is respectfully recommended that the Planning Commission receive and file a memorandum with responses to that meeting. So I'd like to provide a brief response to that, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions on that. So a few of the questions, there were quite a few questions at that last meeting. There was a question about potentially coordinating with water and wastewater recycle coordination. I believe that was Commissioner Worth. So I believe we're going to be having a meeting with EMWD for early coordination of new projects, so that we can better coordinate water and wastewater recycling coordination in parallel with other infrastructure related reviews, so that to avoid issues of the design later when it's too late.
Yeah, thank you for that.
There was a question about coordination with the city of San Jacinto. There was a concern that there is a proposal for or an approved development of 249 units in the city of San Jacinto, and the concern is that there could be impacts to Park Avenue, near Park and Menlo and Yale, and that that we should communicate with the city of San Jacinto. Community Development Planning Division will reach out to the city of San Jacinto, as well as a coordination with our Public Works Engineering, City Engineer, and Deputy Public Works Director to reach out and request notification for new development projects that are adjacent to city limits. In, in most jurisdictions, there is a minimum requirement for legal noticing. Typically, if you're adjacent to the development, you'll receive noticing, but there may be a radius for notification, and in some cases, if the radius is too far from our jurisdiction, we wouldn't, necessarily receive all the notifications of all the new development in the city of San Jacinto. So I'm going to actively reach out to their planning division and that city to see if we could, be provided with more notification of development in that community. There was also a question of whether or not the Park Avenue and Menlo road improvements for the Capital Improvement Program. There was a recommendation from the Planning Commission to include improvements on Park Avenue in Menlo. I did reach out to Public Works, and they did confirm that they did include that in the Capital Improvement Program. Please note that it might not, be explicit in the document, but they are including it. They also wanted me to let you know that and it's important to note because the east side of Park Avenue is within the jurisdiction of San Jacinto. So the improvements would only be half street, full improvements, half street in the city of Hemet's jurisdiction. But those are included in the CIP.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any coordination with San Jacinto on getting, it sounds silly to do half a street and that.
That is a great question. I agree. I think that's a great question that we can pose to the city of San Jacinto if they have a capital improvement program and what their long-term program looks like and how that would impact Park Avenue.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Be a lot more cost effective that way.
We received a comment from Commissioner Papp with regards to concern with vandalism in the city. We do have an amazing app called SeeClickFix, and it is an application that allows the City of Hemet residents to report on non-emergency related issues. The SeeClickFix can be used via the web on a desktop computer, laptop, mobile, or tablet. You can download it on your phone, and there is a link provided in this report memorandum, https://www.hemetca.gov/1112 how to submit a request. So if you just type in Google SeeClickFix City of Hemet, we also have it on our city's website, and it can connect you to that SeeClickFix app.
Yep, works great. My wife uses it a lot. She loves it.
There was a comment about concerns, and that sounds like we've heard some, comments this evening about vacant buildings in the downtown, and in particular, property located at the corner of Stetson and Sapphire Street, as well as property located on State in Florida. I did a little bit of just research on that. I was able to confirm that the State Street and Florida Avenue, there's a building plan check for Shell Building. Improvements in progress on that. I actually did the plan check on it, so I just wanted community to be aware that I did the plan check on it. I'm aware of the submittal, and corrections have been provided to the property or to the applicant on that. But we are actively working on that one. So it is active.
That's State in Florida? That's
Yes.
the corner?
Yes.
Do you have a date, like when the applicant responds back to that?
Well, it's been in the last few months, but literally I did a plan check, and it just happened to be that I was looking in my queue. So we do, Community Development Planning Division. We also do building plan checks, and so that was just literally more recently, this month. So they are being responsive.
What's the scope of that plan review? What's the scope of the project?
It's a retrofit, so there's structural, retrofit, with shell building with a new roof.
So just a shell, but no other improvements. It's just to make it back into a building at this point?
It is a shell improvement, so that it's, structural, and then in the future, it's also a tenant improvement, it's a tenant improvement plan, but we are, making sure that it complies with our requirements. And there was corrections on it, from our department, and I know other departments had reviews on it. So it does include full, tenant improvements.
And does that include earthquake retrofitting
That is correct.
requirements?
That is correct.
My, one question, and there was an interview that I watched on local, news person around here in town, but, the applicant of that building mentioned something about, of course, he blames the city for many things, but, one of the things he mentioned was a demolition permit. Is there such a thing like that, where, because he was saying that demolition permit, he goes in and he just kind of does what he wants, you don't necessarily have to do, follow guidelines as much, because it's taking too long to hear back from the city. I don't know if that's true, but that's just something that applicant brought up in the interview was, for example, like on Kimball Street with all the windows knocked out, that was something that he pulled a demolition permit on to demo. And I don't know, I mean, you might be able to fill me in, but he made it in that statement and that wording that he pulled a demo permit to do a demo out.
No, I couldn't speak to that. I wouldn't, on that, but, we do have the Department of Life Safety. We have a building official, a fire marshal. Our building department looks at those, when permits are submitted or demolition. We do have code enforcement for a variety of, unpermitted construction, whether it's, demolition or additions or new construction. We do, have a department that monitors, that type of activity.
Thank you.
So there was also a question about the property on Stetson and Sapphire. We do have the, which was formerly, or the LNL Market. So, I have notified our building official, fire marshal, on that. We've had some, they did have originally some, requests. They had a pre-application for that, to do some improvements on the property. And since then, I didn't find any recent activity to report back to the commission on. So I did notify the building official with that information. They should be aware of that.
What recourse does the city have if there's no activity, if nothing's being done, and it's just sitting there like that?
At that point, we'd have to refer to our Hemet Municipal Code and what remedies are available to us for vacancies and buildings that are not maintained in the city. In this case, I have notified the building official, fire marshal, of that, and we can also report back on any new information that I find out.
That's interesting feedback, and thank you for bringing that issue up last meeting, Chair, because I drive by that regularly, and it is an odd thing to see, to have a van sitting there, and it seems to be attracting some odd characters. And if it's, my initial thought was that there was some problem with permitting for the tanks or something like that was preventing them from finishing it. So if it's just on them, just to that, I would hope we can have, our admin code is strong enough to cause some action on that.
It's very curious to see what's not going on there. I can recall several months ago, I drive by there regularly, almost daily. I do recall some brand-new fuel pumps being delivered and
Right.
sitting out there for several weeks or months, actually, and now they're gone. So I don't know if they were removed by the owner, if they were stolen, if they were vandalized, what happened to them, but why were they not installed, and exactly what is preventing them from moving forward? Are they intending to move forward and complete those repairs? Because it's an eyesore sitting there. It's, besides being an eyesore, it is obviously an attractive nuisance that's going to eventually invite problems. But it would sure be nice to see that open, have eyes on the street, have people there using it, getting some sales tax revenue to the city. City gets pretty good sales tax revenues from fuel sales, as well as at the market there. Just curious, what are the delays and why are they not opening? Is it a city-related issue? Is it an ownership issue? Have they changed ownership? Have they changed their mind about developing the site? Are their permits still active? Doesn't appear that they've had an inspection anytime recently. There's still a lot more questions that I'd like to see it. I don't understand why development gets to a certain stage and then just stops. And we have quite a bit of that going on throughout the city right now. And I think if we can't get the owners of the properties to resolve those issues, then the city might need to consider stepping in, doing some things like, there are other remedies available to the city. The jurisdiction that I work in, we've recently gone through the process of having buildings demolished. Through, I forget, the legal term escapes me at the moment, receivership.
Eminent domain.
No, it's a receivership. If there's a demonstrated issue with a property as far as maintenance is concerned, or if it's unsafe.
Yes.
For example, my jurisdiction, we had a hotel that caught on fire. It was, many years ago, it was a very nice hotel. But it got boarded up, and then vagrants kept getting into it. And in the cold weather, they bring in wood, they bring in paper, they start fires. Those fires get out of control and they spread. This building had been set ablaze about 9 times before the court finally awarded the receiver the ability to demolish the structures. And now the site can be redeveloped. So I would like to ask the city to consider the possibility of receivership for some of these long-time standing properties that are sitting idle and pose a threat to the community in terms of the attractive nuisance and homeless, vagrants, vandalism, etc. I think we need to take a more proactive stance on working on some of these buildings to bring them up to snuff or remove them so somebody else can develop them.
The city of Eureka, California, I have pretty intimate knowledge with some of their situations. Sam Stanson is one gentleman, and then also Floyd Squires. I have contacted and let several people at the city know that there is case law. You can look up for the city of Eureka, and you will see an attorney who was my husband's best friend. They came in under the eminent domain because it was unsafe, especially for Sam Stanson. What is happening in our downtown, Old Town, is identical to what's went on in the city of Eureka. And they went through the court system and they were successful. So, our attorney is welcome. I will be happy to get her that information on the city of Eureka. But there were processes that they went through which included red tags. There is absolutely no reason why we should be held hostage, which is what Sam and Floyd both did to the city of Eureka.
Yes, Commissioner Clark, if you can send me that information. And I believe the Hemet Municipal Code is under section 14-511 enforcement. Just quickly, my internet is very slow, but we could reference that, and I'll look into that a little bit further with our code enforcement attorney in our office.
Are you still using De Pere and Litvack for that? Are you still using De Pere and Litvack for the code?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to provide you a couple of updates with the status of the facade improvement program, the commercial facade improvement program that was approved by council. The program will involve facade improvements to small businesses as well as larger retail. We have received 19 micro applications as well as 17 macro, which are the larger shopping centers. I'm happy to report that we have more applications than we can serve at this time. We will be reviewing all of the applications and we'll be following up and bringing it back to the Planning Commission for review and consideration and recommendation of those facade programs. Also, we have the trash enclosure pilot program that was approved by the city. I wanted to kind of give you an update on what's been happening with that.
I want to follow up on that, though. I mean, I've been hearing for a couple months now that we're planning on sending it to allow contractors to bid on it, but that's been a couple months of the same answer to get a trash enclosure in some of these places. When is that bid gonna open so that we can get the wheels moving?
Yes. Yes, I'd be happy to respond to that. So just so the commission's aware, we the council approved the program a few months ago, and upon receipt of the applications, we received 24 trash enclosure applications. Staff conducted inspections for each of the properties to determine the needs based on the requirements to provide a new double enclosure based on the city's current standards, and to look at the potential suitable locations for reconstruction based on each site. So we ran into a little bit of a challenge on that. The reality is that those sites did not necessarily need a double enclosure, or there may have been an existing trash enclosure that maybe just needed some retrofitting to just a cleanup, or maybe a roof, maybe new gates. And what we ran into is a challenge with our current city standards. They didn't necessarily meet our city standards, which was part of the ordinance that is going to require citywide compliance with our current refuse design standards. So that was one of the challenges we ran into. Instead of looking at it from, okay, how do we remedy this? But is it legal? Is it in compliance with our refuse standards? So that was one of the issues we ran into. The other issue was the cost of construction for the trash enclosure to meet the modern standards, because we have a really nice design that will provide protection for vandalism, and it ensures, lockable, an enclosed roof with an enclosure that ensures that that you can't get into the structure. So the contractors' bids that we were requiring contractors' bids for each individual property, and they were coming in much higher than anticipated based on the costs of construction, material, and labor. So that was another issue that we were running into. So with those two together, in response, our Public Works Department, our Public Works Engineering Department is preparing, right now, they're designing in-house alternative standard details, designs for trash enclosures to allow for more flexibility, which has been taking a little bit of time to get that in-house design. They're almost done with it, and they're almost done with those designs, and those are going to be included with an RFP that we're going to go out to bid. One more time, this time will be for one contractor, because all of the contractors that we obtained bids from were just, it was just more than we can fund the program. So we'll have a one-time, an RFP for a competitive bid. It'll be sent out for an exclusive contract to construct all the trash upgrades by one contractor. So it's more attractive to get that within budget if it's one contract. And so this will keep the cost of construction within the budget allocated. So in communicating with our economic development manager, that RFP should be prepared in the next couple weeks. And that's going to be sent out. Now we do have the holidays coming up, but we are getting close to releasing that RFP for bid. So apologize for the delay in that, but we are actively pursuing this, and we should be able to have more information for the commission most likely at our next planning commission meeting. I should be able to have more information on the status of that.
Thank you.
There have been some concerns on the status of In-N-Out. We are aware of the queuing issues that is happening, so the city's been looking into interim and permanent solutions to the queuing issues. We are continuing our research and alternative on that, and we'll be reaching out again to the to In-N-Out and corporate. We are going to be following up that. I will keep you up to date on what's happening with that, but we are aware of it, and we are actively looking into that. I have good news to report on the status of H&A Plastics. They have successfully obtained their approvals from engineering. We had to renew the building permit, so that was approved by our building official, fire marshal, from the building department. The final routing of the plans were sent out. They're in the queue right now for final signatures, and we do anticipate a final permit issuance from the applicant within the next few weeks. So that's good news. And then there's been some questions about what's happening with the status. This is my final update for tonight, or maybe I'll have two more. I have one more after this. The status of Dutch Bros. So I apologize, and the memo was a little confusing. The status of Dutch Bros is that there was a water quality management plan that needed to be approved, which the property owner required them to re-sign a new lease agreement. So that took a little bit of time with the property owner, but that's been completed. It's been approved by engineering. And now all we're waiting for is the Southern California Edison to energize the building, which may take a few weeks. So the hope, and our hope is that the Dutch Bros would be open before Christmas. So that's the status for Dutch Bros. And lastly, there was a question about whether or not we're pursuing the pro-housing designation, or what is the status of that. The Planning Commission recommended approval to proceed with the pro-housing designation application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. That was presented to the City Council on October 22nd. They did receive the report and authorized preparation of the pro-housing designation program. for future scheduled meeting with the council. So it is on planning's, in planning's queue to be preparing the application. And, you know, based off our current capacity in our department, it's on my list. But we're, you know, also actively working to expand our department, and hopefully we have more capacity to focus really on an excellent pro-housing designation application. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
I have a question, Monique, Director Monique. On number 9, the cost of building permits for the coffee shop.
Oh, yes. that's right.
I appreciate the breakdown. I do have a question. The commercial permit and commercial plan review, if you can just kind of give me a definition what that means, and is that the normal cost for any business coming in to open up a business that size? Is that a normal cost of paying almost $5,000 for?
Yes, so the permit fees are based on an adopted council resolution. When a building permit is submitted, it is based on the valuation of the project. So if they, you know, a lot of times they'll put in a very small number, but you know, really the value of the work could be on a, you know, tenant improvement of this size, of even if it's a small suite, could be, you know, significant, you know, in terms of the investment that's been made in there, the value of the work. So let's just, for example, if like $100,000 or $250,000, so there's a percentage of that it's based on. So whether or not it's normal compared to other communities, I couldn't speak to that without doing a comparison or comparative analysis. But the commercial plan review, plan check fee, it does cover the plan check for that, and allows for it allows for multiple plan checks on it. So there's an estimate based on that. But whether or not it, you know, how it compares to other communities and it's normal, I wouldn't be able to, you know, provide that comparative now.
I'm just trying to, I'm still trying to get a straight answer to, because I did call Temecula, and their cost is half of what this particular coffee house has to pay for fees just to move into this location. It's not, he doesn't own it, he's just renting the space from a landlord. And so is he stuck with certain fees that the landlord should have paid? I don't understand why Hemet is so a lot more costlier to open up a business here in town compared to our neighboring towns that have better demographics. We want to be more business friendly, and $7,200 is a lot of money for a coffee shop just for fees. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. I think that's pretty pricey. I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks, but that's a lot of money just to, you know, plumbing fees, planning fees, microfilm fees, mechanical, fire, electrical, building, all this stuff. But the commercial permit, those two things is $5,000 right there. And I don't know, I just think that's really expensive for a small mom and pop store to try to open up a business here in town if we're trying to be a little more business friendlier. So I just wanted to break down on that and just make sure that it wasn't something that maybe the landlord's responsible for, but the tenant's paying for it. I don't know, I don't know what you guys think on that. If that's a little pricey or not, but.
I agree.
I think the challenge, or a challenge, and I don't know, you know, that specific example, but just kind of in a general sense, you know, we just had a presentation on 35 new bills coming down, and so there's so many elements associated with the review, approval, coordination. I know at least on the side, on my civilian job or on my full-time job, and how those, it's only going up, and everything is only getting more complicated, and I'm not saying one way or the other on this particular project, but it seems like we as a local agency, we're being asked to do more, and that we're being restricted on how we can recover the cost to do more, and we're being threatened, if you will, by state funding to help facilitate doing more. So there, I think it's important to look at it. And obviously, there's a operational and business efficiency component that we need to focus on to help with streamlining the business process and to make sure that we can bring things in. But there's a lot of pressure, I guess, from a lot of other entities that are affecting the general cost of development, whether it be within the city of Hemet or the county or elsewhere. So not a thought specifically to the Dutch Bros project, but just in general, when we are hearing all of these different things coming down from the state, none of that's going to make it cheaper for us or easier for us to comply. It's only going to make it more costly and more challenging to recover those costs.
I just need to do my homework a little bit more, maybe reach out to other neighboring cities, but I just want to I want to make sure we're competitive.
Right, yeah. No, that's a
Not
great point.
double the price. That's not competitive at all. So,
I know that lots of Southern California cities that are adjacent to each other regularly meet community development, so to speak, Monique, where they have a regular monthly meeting where they discuss these things, you know, and I know that there are cities on the other side of the mountain that should and do this kind of conversation, because we're not far from San Jacinto, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big fan of this housing thing, but the comment, I should have put my business over in San Jacinto, they're much more business friendly, is the antidote to getting together with these local cities over lunch. I mean, you gotta take a lunch anyways, and you know, you're meeting with somebody who's adjacent, and this is how we've done it. And that is education that can be brought all the way to the city council and to us. I understand his point with the restrictions, but there are some cities that are just flourishing business-wise. That's just like think outside the box.
yeah.
It just seems to me that there could be provisions for small business and small disadvantaged businesses. You know, that gives them a less fee structure than a large business, especially if it's woman-owned or veteran-owned or something like that.
Okay. I just think it's pricey. That's what I'm trying to get the real reason why it's that price, but
You know,
I don't have any other questions.
I really appreciate that feedback. I think that is a key. The more that we as regional cities and agencies can band together in how we're implementing the state's goals and subsequent regulations and legislations and regulation, the better we're all going to be served. So that coordination and that, I mean, is there something through, I'm just curious, Monique, is there something through like WRCOG that looks at fees throughout the city? Is there any kind of a comparative analysis done through them?
Yes, actually, so the Western Riverside Council of Government will be, has recently updated their transportation uniform mitigation fee, the TUMP fees. Those are going up. So, you know, that is being coordinated, that's been approved, but now cities are also gonna have to update their ordinances to reflect those. So there is coordination in Riverside County. We do have the WRCOG directors meeting that I attend, and a lot of the discussion topics are what's happening on a statewide level, what's happening with you know, construction costs and development, And definitely, that's a great topic that could be discussed among the communities, you know, because the cost of construction is, as well is affecting the cost to, you know, the cost of service.
Mhm. Lots of challenges.
Lots of challenges. Any other questions?
No, but I'd like to thank Monique for the feedback. This is excellent. Really do appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate the follow-up on all the questions we had. And with that, if the commission doesn't have any questions or comments, we'll go ahead and announce that the commission received and filed the department's with memorandum. Moving on to item 7A, city attorney reports.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to note, I mentioned under our previous discussion on the vacant building remedies, I noted section 14511. Just wanted to mention it was under Article 14, just so that's easier to locate in the municipal code. And also, just wanted to remind the commission, once you do get the outline from tonight's presentation, feel free to send me an email on anything you'd like me to look into deeper.
Okay.
I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 7B, community development reports. Director Monique.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind the commission of the upcoming Planning Commissioners Academy in March of 2025. I have received responses, but I did send out correspondence to the commission just confirming those who will be attending. To date, I've received 3 of the 5 commissioners' confirmations. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Monique. Item 7C, future agenda items. Director Monique.
Okay, future agenda items, they haven't changed since the last commission meeting, but we do have an amendment to the specific plan. We do have the drive-through reconfiguration and new restaurant, former Long John Silver site, Freddy's Restaurant, which is west of the Hampton Inn, and Simpson Business Park is still in the works. The work study for electronic display billboards, as well as High Point Apartments, will be coming to the commission.
All right, thank you very much. 7D, Planning Commission reports. Director Monique.
Commissioner Worth?
With all this big stuff, I feel kind of silly bringing up something petty, but just something maybe the city staff could look into, the intersection at Dominagoni and State Street. I don't know if there's an opportunity to look at that signal and how it's controlled, but it doesn't seem to respond to traffic loops, and so it goes through its cycle, which is too short for traffic turning left on Dominagoni, and so what you end up having is a lot of traffic that can't make the green turn arrow, and then they end up doing a loop around Gibble Road, and it's kind of a traffic safety with all the McSweeney Farms traffic coming in there. And then it always, even if there is no traffic lined up on Gibble heading west, it still goes through the whole green light cycle on that. And so I don't know if it's an opportunity to just take a look at the control of that signal and optimize that for better traffic flow and safety. But besides that, nothing to report. And well, thank you for responding to all of those questions, Monique. It's very appreciated.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark?
I do want to thank you also, H&H Plastics. When they do open, finally, I know it's been a long, please let us know, because we need to support them. He's been through a pretty rough ride with the city. And on my own note, right at the Menlo, Girard, and Park intersection, today from 7:24 a.m. to 8:24 a.m., 1 hour on a peak day Tuesday, during a peak hour, 927 cars stopped at that kind of funky intersection. Almost 1,000 cars, 1 hour. So, there's a reason why Menlo Street looks like it does, or Park in that intersection. My husband tonight is at the San Jacinto City Council trying to explain to them they do own half of the street. We own half of the street. Their public is using our public, and our public is using their public roads. And so I would really encourage some real concrete conversation about coordinating and working. And the engineer I spoke with last night, who is the engineer for the city of San Jacinto, agreed and even acknowledged the fact that the two cities do not communicate. And he never hears anything. Apparently, the city of Hemet gets notified when something gets approved. Well, I said, that's news to me. I don't know or hear anything that's coming up with another city, because we are in the influence. We're right there. And so I would like to encourage engineering, if they have anything coming down the pike, we should be informed. If they are required to inform the city of Hemet, we should be informed. But I do appreciate you stepping forward and listening to some of our concerns over and over. And I do understand that you have a pretty full job. And I do want to commend you on that. But just understand, we want the best for the city of Hemet. And that's my genuine feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Vice Chair Papp?
Yes, thank you. Thought I'd start off by discussing the new concrete tilt-up building that's being built off of Wentworth, steel distribution facility building. Just thought I'd mention to the commission, if they haven't seen, on social media there's been quite a few posts about that building, and apparently we got one right. A lot of people are commenting on the fact that here we have an industrial building in an industrial zone for industrial purposes. It's not a warehouse per se. It is a distribution facility for the owner of that building to distribute their product. So I appreciate the comments on social media. Thank you for that. Hopefully we'll continue to make good decisions that will get popular comments on social media. I did have some questions and concerns about an upcoming agenda item regarding electronic billboards. And I'm curious to know whether or not the proposed future realignment of Highway 79 is being considered for the location of any of these billboards, and if so, where might they go? Are we looking specifically at state highways, 74 and 79 in particular, for the location of billboards? Are we looking at adding to the number of billboards that are currently existing? Or are we looking at transitioning existing billboards? For example, there's one near the mattress stop, I believe. It's very low to the ground. Many years ago, I almost bumped my head on it watching the Christmas parade. And I'm not that tall. But I'm curious to know if the intention is to convert static billboards to electronic display billboards, and if so, if there's been any kind of consideration for civic messages or what do you call it? Public service announcements. Thank you. to be required to be displayed on any of those in the future? And are we looking at the possibility of locating them on any of our other major roadways, such as Sanderson Avenue or Dominigoni Parkway? So things to consider in the future proposal for electronic billboards. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Chair Beamsterfer?
That billboard, the owner is very desperately trying to update that, but he's being held down from city restrictions, so we're waiting on this to get done, so we can maybe take that next step for that owner. There's a lot of things that were through my mind, but I just went through a blank right now. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate the new council members that got elected for the new term. I also want to, well, you know what? I just drawn a blank, so I'm just going to go ahead and say I have nothing else to report. But thank you for your presentation. Thank you for getting back to us on the questions we have. And I know you got your plate full, and you run the city, and there's a lot of things for you to get done. So I appreciate you taking your time and giving us some of the answers back. And with that, with there being no further business to discuss, this meeting will be adjourned to the next Planning Commission meeting scheduled for December the 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. And everybody have a happy holidays.